Let's talk about something I'm pretty sure we've all felt, that dread that creeps in when you have to make small talk. In this explainer, we're going to flip that feeling on its head. We're going to give you the tools to turn those awkward moments into real, genuine connection, especially if you're a little shy or introverted. You know the feeling, right? That moment when the conversation just stops. The silence is deafening, and your brain just goes completely blank. You're scrambling, trying to think of literally anything to say. It's got to be one of the most uncomfortable feelings out there. Well, if that's you, you are so not alone. But here's the game-changing part. Being a good conversationalist isn't some magic power you're either born with or you're not. Nope, it is a skill. And just like any skill, it's something you can actually practice and get way, way better at. Okay, so if we're going to build this skill, first we have to understand why conversations sometimes will crash and burn. So let's break down the most common mistakes so we know exactly what to look out for. So here they are, the usual suspects. I mean, who hasn't been guilty of not really listening? You know, where you're just nodding along, waiting for your turn to talk. Or my personal favorite, the interrogation, where you fire off question after question until the other person feels like they're on trial. Look, the point is, these aren't deep character flaws. They're just bad habits, and we can absolutely change them. And that first one about listening, it's probably the biggest one of all. Hemingway he hit the nail on the head here. We get so wrapped up in what we're going to say next, we totally forget that the most powerful conversation tool we have is our ears. Real connection always, always starts with listening. You know, this idea of listening leads us to the single most important part of this whole explainer. Seriously, if you remember only one thing today, make it this. It's a shift in your mindset that changes absolutely everything. And here it is. A conversation isn't a debate. It's not a performance. You're not there to sound smart or funny or to win an argument. Just let all of that pressure go. Your one and only job is to connect with the other person. That's it. That is the entire goal. So what does connection even mean, really? It's simple. It's about making the other person feel like you see them, like you get them. It's about them walking away feeling respected, heard, and like you actually enjoyed spending that time with them. And to make this super practical, there's a fantastic little framework called LOVE. First, L is for listen intently, not just to the words, but the feeling behind them. O is for observe their body language. Are they leaning in? Are their arms crossed? V is for verify what you're hearing. Say something like, so it sounds like you're feeling, and finally, E. Evaluate everything you've just learned to figure out what to say next. It's like a little roadmap to real connection. Okay, so now that we have that connection first mindset locked in, let's get down to business and fill up your toolkit with some actual strategies you can start using like today. First things first, you gotta understand this. We stress so much about finding the perfect words, right? But look at this. The actual words you say, that's only 7% of what people receive. A whopping 93% is your tone of voice and your body language. Think about that. How you say something is literally more powerful than what you say. All right, let's tackle the scariest part for many of us, starting the conversation. It's time to channel your inner James Bond. And no, you don't need a tuxedo or an Aston Martin. What I mean is that calm, cool confidence that comes from knowing you don't need some magical, witty opening line. Seriously, we put all this pressure on ourselves to be clever. But guess what the most naturally charismatic people do? They use the boring classics. A simple, hey, how's it going, works just fine. The goal isn't to be a comedy genius. The goal is just to get the ball rolling. So just start. So you did it. You started the conversation. Awesome. Now, how do we keep it from sputtering out after 30 seconds? We need to talk about the engine of the conversation. This right here is pure gold. When someone asks you a question, don't just give a one-word answer. You want to give them a little juicy tidbit, a little extra detail they can grab onto. See here? You're not just answering the question, you're basically handing them a new topic on a silver platter. You're making it easy for them to keep things going. And now for the other side of that coin. When it's your turn to ask a question, try to make it an open-ended one that invites a story, not just a yes or a no. So instead of, do you like this event? Which is a total dead end, try something like, what do you think of this event? See the difference? You're not just asking a question, you're inviting them to share a piece of their world with you. Okay, so the last tool in our kit isn't really about what you say. It's about the feeling you create. It's the vibe. And this is all about warmth and honesty. This one's called the Dare to Be Honest strategy, and it is so powerful. I know it sounds a little scary, but sharing a small, genuine moment of vulnerability, like just admitting you feel a little overwhelmed, it does something incredible. It shows you're a real person, that you're trustworthy, and that makes the other person feel safe enough to be real too. It builds a connection faster than almost anything else.
All right, you've got the new mindset, you've got the new tools. Now comes the most important part of all, actually putting it into practice. Let's get you ready for your first mission.
But first, a super important reminder. You have to let go of being perfect. You're gonna say something awkward at some point. I promise. We all do. But get this, studies actually show that people who make tiny little mistakes are seen as more likable, more approachable than people who seem perfect. So don't be afraid of an awkward moment. It just makes you human. So here is your super simple takeaway mission. The very next conversation you have, just try to do these few things. Focus on connecting, not on impressing them. Ask just one open-ended question. Share just one juicy tidbit about you. And maybe most importantly, if it feels a little clunky or awkward, just be nice to yourself. It's all part of learning. And that's the key, right? It's practice. Like learning an instrument or a sport, conversation is a muscle. And every single little interaction with the person making your coffee, the cashier at the store, that's your chance to do one more rep. It's your personal gym for getting just a tiny bit better each time. And it all just starts with one. Not 100 conversations, not 10, just one. One single attempt to connect with one other person. That's all it takes to get the ball rolling. So, I'll leave you with this question. What's the one conversation you're going to start today? Who are you going to try to connect with? The power to change your social life from something that causes anxiety to something that brings you joy, it really is in your hands.